You are listening to A Scary State, and this week we're talking about South Carolina. So, Lauren?
Yes, Kenzie?
Let's get scary.
So we're recording on a different day, so now the things that we talk about are going to be relevant like 2 days later.
Yeah, I kind of like that.
But then it gives us so much less time to like get it ready.
But we don't then need to also have our stories ready at the same time the episode needs to be ready.
That is true.
So really, we've just kind of stretched everything out to give us more time. We've actually done ourselves quite the favor.
That actually is true, which is nice.
Yeah, I think that means that things can get done in other places because now we've created all this time for ourselves.
Even though it's still a week between recordings, but still.
Yeah, but it's like, it's different.
It is different.
Yeah. And, I'm only taking one class. I am going to be working full time. So
I know.
I'm going to do a blanket apology right now. They're going to be late social media posts. Later than they already were.
I think people can forgive you.
Like I have a reminder that goes off in my phone for each of them, same time each day. And I'm like, you're lucky if you get that and you click okay, I did it when it comes up. And sometimes I'll be really good about it too and get them all done ahead of time. And even when the reminder comes up, I'm like, oh yeah, cool. So then I go to download the images and to post on Instagram and I get sidetracked by something.
Well, naturally.
And it takes a couple extra hours before I get to putting it up there.
I think that's okay.
Yeah. So heads up. And when I say late, I mean like instead of Thursday, things might be on Friday.
Oh no.
Yeah.
I think that's okay.
And also shout out to all the teachers who are going back to school.
Oh yeah, good luck.
If you haven't already started. If you have started, good luck. If you haven't started, Godspeed. I'm there with you.
So last night we watched the third Quiet Place movie. So it's called Day One. So it is a prequel to the other two.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Which was good, but it wasn't my favorite because it wasn't directed by John Krasinski. It was directed by someone else. Mm-hmm. He's the one who did the first two. So last night I had a dream that we were in the Quiet Place world and we couldn't make noise. Oh my God, it was terrifying.
I'm sure.
And then every time I would wake up, I would fall back asleep and be right back in the dream. Awful. And I've never, I don't get nightmares from things that I've seen, so I don't know why this one was all of a sudden
be nice.
There you go.
That must be really, really nice for you.
Well, this last night wasn't too great.
I have dreams about conversations, let alone shit I've seen.
I wouldn't say A Quiet Place was scary like the third one.
Yeah, but it probably was a little terrifying when you were there, huh?
In my dreamland, yeah.
Uh-huh.
No, I mean, dreamland, of course it's... Because you know what A Quiet Place is. You can't make noise or the huge creatures attack you.
My point is you may not have been scared watching the movie.
Oh, yeah, no, when you're in the dream world. Yeah, very scary.
You were scared after.
Very scary. But it's not a thing where, I'm not afraid of it when I turn the lights off here. If I'm going up to bed and I turn the lights off, it doesn't scare me.
Good for you. You don't have the in-between scary. Right. I do.
Well, because it's not an in-between scary kind of movie. So far, we're not in a world where you have to be quiet because you would die.
Hence my fear, okay? I would be dead instantly. My point is that right there, you having those scary dreams, that is why I do not watch scary movies.
You have to condition yourself.
It might not scare me in the moment. I might even find it interesting. But later on, when I'm solo and it's only me and my thoughts, God help me.
That's how it used to be for me. But then I conditioned myself. We were watching the movie last night, like I said, and we were thinking, could we make it in this world? Would we be okay for a little bit? And then Roy just starts making his, weird coffee noises. And I said, nope, he's the reason we would die.
You can't even cough?
You can't make noise.
Any noise?
Any noise.
No sneeze.
No sneeze. That's what I think. I was like, how do none of these people sneeze?
Right. Can you make noises? Is there, a safe place to make noise?
Near water. If there's, a waterfall, because they get distracted by that noise so they can't hear you.
So is there any dialogue in this movie?
Very little.
Oh.
Very little.
I don't think I would find that interesting to watch.
It's good, though. But
because then I'd have to watch it.
Yes, you would have to watch it.
No.
But they also can talk it was downpour raining in most of the scenes because they're in New York. And so they could talk under the rain. So as long as you're quieter than the rain, you're good. And then they would scream because they were frustrated. So they would wait for the thunder to go off, the lightning and stuff. So that once lightning hit, then the thunder came, they could scream during the thunder because then the thunder was louder than them screaming.
Yeah, it's not.
I know you haven't seen Bird Box, but Bird Box is a movie where you can't look at things.
Yeah,
so,
I didn't want to do that either.
So if you had to choose a world.
Both of those seem very shit's going to pop out, especially if they can't talk, so it's extra quiet. That's when shit always pops out.
If you had to be in one of these worlds, would you rather be in a world where
Tell
you
me I
can't
was wrong.
would you rather be in a world where you can't speak? Or would you rather be in a world where you can't look at anything?
What do you think?
Look at anything?
Correct. That was a dumb question.
But at least you could move around. If you can't see, they tried to like in Bird Box. I saw it so long ago, I don't remember it all. But they would try to get from like where they were to another safe spot that like had been formed. They got in their car and tried to use their GPS so they wouldn't look at anything. And that didn't work too well because they can't see what's out there. They can just see their GPS. It's like all that stuff. Kind of scary.
Probably wouldn't get in the car.
Well, they had to move. You can't move with your eyes closed.
You can.
How would you get from like my house to your dad's house with your eyes closed?
I would listen for the sound of cars. And then I would walk my happy ass
At least for
across.
us, it's just a
I was
straight
gonna say,
shot.
I would literally walk my happy ass across the street as soon as I heard no cars coming because my hearing would be extraordinary.
Pristine.
And then I would just walk and have my hands out in front of me. I'd probably crawl.
Yeah, I'd probably do the
I'd
same.
probably crawl.
But yeah, we both agreed. Well, we all agreed that we think we would prefer not to see anything.
Yeah.
Because you could like board up your windows and stuff.
Exactly.
And if you needed to go out, you
Yeah.
just have to be safe.
What is it that they are not allowed to see?
Warning, if you don't want to hear this, skip ahead. So there's something outside where when you look outside, you see this creature that makes you want to kill yourself.
Oh.
And so you see it, then you die because you kill yourself.
Okay.
But kids don't see it, I guess.
Oh.
And then I don't know. It's a weird movie.
Then I just have a seeing eye kid.
Actually, genius.
Thank you.
You'd be fine being a teacher. Hey, I want you.
Yeah, be like,
You're
all
my
right,
seeing eye
it's
kid."
time to go outside. Who's going to lead me there?
Because, yeah, it's like, I don't remember, but it was Sandra Bullock, so.
That I knew.
Yeah.
It's the suspenseful ones that the psychological. Although, remember, there is that one Channing Tatum movie that looks really, really interesting. You have to watch it and you got to take notes.
I will.
Know all the scary points. And so,
Timestamped, everything.
and then we're going to watch it because
Okay.
it looks really interesting.
It does.
So,
It does. There's a lot of movies I'm really excited to see that are coming out.
there's a couple that I've seen in commercials and I'm like, that's scary.
Like Alien Romulus.
Yeah, didn't look at that one.
I'm
when the
very excited to
commercials
see
were
it.
on.
We were supposed to go see it with some of our coworkers. Well, my one coworker was making a plan to go see it yesterday, and I was like, yeah, it's an event. I can't go. So they went anyways. And then there's Trap. It's an M. Night Shyamalan movie.
I don't think I've seen the ones for that. Although now that we're talking about it, you're going to speak it into existence for me.
That one doesn't look scary. That one looks interesting. So it's about, this is what I've seen in the preview, so I'm not giving anything away. This guy takes his daughter to a concert. Like,
Oh, yeah. Okay, that one. That's like, that to me is more like Liam Neeson Taken than it is.
well, do you know the twist that you see in the trailer?
Yes.
That he's the serial killer?
Yes.
Yeah. So I want to see that.
That's more like action crime,
That one looks good.
crimey, not scary movie.
And then Twisters, obviously.
That's not a scary movie either.
No, it's not.
That's action.
But I want to see it.
But yeah.
And then the one you talked about. Yeah, so I have 4 good movies I want to see right now.
Definitely am not interested in Alien.
I know you wouldn't be.
There was something else that's coming out. I don't know. I don't know what it is because I don't look. when that scary stuff comes on, all of a sudden I'm like, wow, look at the floor.
What a nice
Oh,
floor.
Nice. Because usually it's like in the commercials, there's definitely always a scary thing that pops out.
Oh, yeah.
So when it starts to get quiet in the commercials, I just go, doo, 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 doo. And cover my ears.
Do we want to jump into South Carolina?
We should.
While the name Jocassee means place of the lost one, you might just find yourself here. Defined by the plunging wall of hills of the Blue Ridge Escarpment, the Jocassee Gorges in the northwestern corner of South Carolina stretch across more than 43,000 acres of forest, streams, lakes, and waterfalls.
You know what's fun with me doing this like days ago? I don't remember.
Amazing. So it's new for both of us.
Exactly.
Situated along the shore of cool, clear Lake Jocassee Reservoir, Devil's Fork State Park is just one of the series that dot the area, offering camping, cabins, hiking, fishing, and more. For some of South Carolina's most challenging hiking, try Table Rock State Park. From Table Rock's trails, you can access the 80-mile foothills trails that connect several state parks. The gorges boast dozens of rare animal and plant species, including the signature Oconee bell wildflower and a large migratory population of the Swainson's warbler.
Warbler is a hard word.
Warbler. It is.
Those WRs, man.
Those WRs. Recent finds suggest that people arrived in the area, now called South Carolina, over 50,000 years ago. Native American tribes such as the Cherokee, Creek, and Santee have lived here for thousands of years.
Santee.
Santee?
I'll look it up later and I'll keep whichever and is right.
Okay, perfect. The sandhills are topped with coarse sand that scientists believe was created by ancient oceans. South Carolina's forest. Okay, real quick, think about this. So you know we talked about the whole thing where like societies get to a point where they just like die?
Do I think we're getting to ours? 100%.
Not my question, but thank you. My question was...
Okay.
Do you think like thousands and thousands of years ago that there was another civilization that was as smart as we were with like technology and all of this
You
stuff?
mean like Atlantis?
Potentially.
So like something
like-
along those lines.
Yeah, like something where years and like all these years ago, that was their other like
There's no
civilization.
fucking shot this earth has been teeming with life. Well, I know it hasn't been teeming with life for 4 billion years, but been around that long. I don't know. I feel like there's something we're missing.
Yeah.
I feel like with the ocean being as big as it is,
Oh yeah.
how little we've explored of it, knowing that there are many artifacts that have been stolen over the years and have been taken by people. They're not just going to stay buried forever.
Right.
You know, other people might have been digging around and like, oh, this thing is cool, and taking it for themselves. And so we wouldn't have any idea where the actual origin of something might come. And the wars and the fires and all that.
And things like diminishing over time. Because I'm just wondering, like all these billions of years ago, potentially, or how old the Earth is, whatever.
And my thing is I'm like, there's always something that happens to someone that can inspire a story. So I always think to myself, well, they had to get that idea from somewhere.
But even if it happened so many, many, many years ago, before our civilization started, if there was a civilization before us that also reached their end point, but if they had gotten to the step where they had like computers and phones and TVs and all of that stuff,
I mean, it's
and
possible
then we just kind of started over.
What it could be, because we have those alien things that visit us but don't like make communication often. It could be that was us.
Yeah.
And since everything crashed, we like went away and we're coming back to check to see what happened.
Interesting.
Like a science project.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, we planted new humans. Let's see what turned out. And they're like, fuck, we did it again.
We're just gonna leave again.
Yeah. We're like, well, just leave that there and let it implode.
We could talk about this for hours.
I know.
Okay. South Carolina's forests cover more than 67% of the state. And they're also one of the state's biggest natural resources, particularly loblolly pine.
Oh, I always said loblolly.
Loblolly. Ooh, I like that more.
That's what I... loblolly.
Loblolly.
Lolly, 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 get your adverbs here.
All I was thinking was lolly, 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 let me see you pop that body.
Okay, mine is from Schoolhouse Rock.
Mine's from just some song.
Yeah.
On Hilton Head Island, visitors can find a mysterious circle of 4,000-year-old shells called the Sea Pines Shell Ring. It may have been a ceremonial area for Native Americans. That's cool.
Right?
At Patriots Point in Charleston Harbor, visitors can explore naval ships, including a submarine, a destroyer, and the USS Yorktown aircraft carrier.
I was in Virginia Beach last weekend, and the bridge that I drove over to get in there, and I'd never seen them close up. And so when we were on the bridge, I'm like, it's mind-blowing how massive they truly are.
I know.
You know, like I know they're big. I know they're massive. But when you're next to something like that you're not used to being next to,
yes,
I'm like, this is what it must feel like in fairy tales when people see a giant.
When I was in North Carolina visiting Jesse, we were driving in Topsail, and we were like crossing over some things, and they had like the big ships there too.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's just massive.
Like when you're on the beach, you ever see those big cargo containers?
Absolutely.
And you can see how huge they are.
Yeah.
I can only imagine being up close and seeing that stuff just stacked all in front of you.
Terrifying.
Crazy.
I wouldn't. I always think, I don't know why I think it, and it scares me, and I don't know why I think it. So, have you ever heard the stories of people like trying to escape in those containers? Okay, so I always think, what if they're on the ocean and they're in one of those containers on this boat, and you know how sometimes the containers fall into the ocean? What if you're in one of those containers?
I'm sure it's happened.
How terrifying would that be?
Ever seen Madagascar? That's
Yes.
exactly what happened to them.
Terrifying. Exactly. See? So scary. Maybe that's where the fear came.
Traumatized by Madagascar. That's hilarious.
Just south of Columbia, Congaree?
Sure.
Is home to miles of hiking and paddling trails, but it's the trees that really leave an impression. Up to 300 years ago and over 150 feet high, many of the champion pine trees in the park are the tallest of their species in the country. Another highlight? Head to the park in late May or early June after dark to experience synchronous fireflies. That's cool.
Right?
Situated in Beaufort County lies an island called Morgan Island. It is nicknamed Monkey Island as it is home to the only free-ranging rhesus monkey colony in the U.S. No humans live there. I remember hearing about this island.
That's where they should have sent Marcel.
Yeah, they should have.
Mhm.
The hottest pepper in the world is the Carolina Reaper, grown in Fort Mill, South Carolina. The spicy pepper can peak at over 2 million on the Scoville scale. You showed me that one show. What was it called?
Something with the competition of eating peppers. It was a competition show.
Well, it was that pepper thing.
Oh, it was World Champions.
Yes, because they
'Cause
also
there
had
was
the
also the
cheese
cheese.
rolling.
Shout out to England. That is the coolest fucking tradition ever.
That is so fun.
I would get over my fear of flying over an ocean to go see some people run down a freaking hill to catch some cheese.
For a second, I was nervous with you saying you were going to run down the
Absolutely
hill.
not.
And I
Are
was
you
like,
kidding me?
who are you?
I would die. I would have to wear a helmet.
And a neck brace and like bubble wrap.
I banged my elbow trying to
Oh my God, you would be one bruise.
get my phone.
You wouldn't be multiple bruises. You would be one bruise.
I honestly think I would just die. Like I truly think I don't think I would make it.
I don't think you would either.
I already have the fear in place because that's how I broke my arm, was running down a hill and I slipped.
Right.
So
Not for you.
I'm like, I've already seen this before, and that hill was much smaller.
Oh, yeah.
It was barely a hill.
Fairly a hill.
It was a slight incline.
South Carolina is the second biggest producer of peaches in the U.S., falling behind California.
Georgia.
I was going to say, where does Georgia belong?
What are you doing? You can't be called the Peach State and
Are
not
they,
live
like,
up to your name.
The third?
I think so.
Well, they have some work to do. The oldest tree in South Carolina is the famous angel oak
Third
tree.
is the worst. Third is the worst. Second is the best. No, first is the worst. Just kidding.
I was like, what?
Second is the best, but third is the one with the cherry chest.
Oh, we always said, do we say treasure chest or hairy chest?
We would sometimes say treasure, cherry, hairy.
Depending on what place you were in.
Correct.
Located in Angel Oak Park on Johns Island is where this famous oak tree is. It is estimated to be over 400 years old.
I think I've talked about this.
I think we have. The Riverbanks Zoological Park has over 2,000 animals living in their natural habitats.
This is cool. I remember this one.
There are no cages and no bars that hold the animals. The animals are contained with natural boundaries such as moats, water, and other environmental barriers. The River Park Zoological Park also has a 70-acre botanical garden with wooded trails, historical ruins, and a walled garden.
That sounds so cool.
So do they have it in a way that, like, animals that are natural predators of other animals won't be able to attack them?
I have no idea. I didn't look into it further than this. Isn't that frustrating when someone does that and you have all these questions?
That's what I feel like. Well, very interesting.
Yeah.
All right, Mackenzie, what story do you have for us?
A good one.
Oh, God.
This story has it all. It's a legend about a murderer who haunts an old prison.
Okay.
Okay. Lavinia Fisher is said to be the first female serial killer in the United States. Many believe that her spirit is among the many who haunt the Old City Jail in Charleston, South Carolina. Lavinia Fisher was born in 1793, but that is all that anyone seems to know about her, except that she married a man named John Fisher, and they lived near Charleston.
Okay.
The couple made a living from operating a hotel called the 6 Mile House. The name comes from the fact that the hotel was 6 miles outside of Charleston.
Very fitting. You know exactly what you're getting yourself into.
Exactly. In the early 1800s, guests, particularly men, began disappearing. Lavinia was said to be a beautiful woman who would use her charm to convince lone travelers to stay at her hotel. Very Sweeney Todd, but hotel instead of hairdresser.
Right.
She would invite them to dinner and ask them all kinds of questions about their lives and occupations. With dinner, she always offered these men a cup of tea. One version says the tea put the men in a deep sleep, and then her husband would beat them to death before robbing them. Another version of the legend said that the tea was made with oleander. I'm assuming that's no bueno. Once the men went to bed, their beds would drop to the basement below, and her husband would stab them to ensure they were dead. I think it was like a poison. And then they would rob them and bury them in the yard.
This sounds similar to someone else we've covered. A lot of women drawing men to hotels and killing them.
I'm pretty sure all the women we've talked about so far, especially like in the early 1900s time frame, all had some sort of place for people to go. Like,
Right.
whether it was taking care of old people.
Our Kansas episode, our drunk Kansas episode with the Bloody Benders, they did the same thing.
Exactly. So,
You gotta do what you gotta do
I
at
mean,
the
she was
time.
the first, you know?
No, good for
There
her.
always has to be a first. Some said that if she thought they had money, that's what would get her to serve them the tea.
Oh, okay.
Then the lever was pulled and the bed would actually drop down onto spikes.
Pull the lever, crunk.
Pretty much. Another
Ooh,
version.
that's not good, though.
No.
The bed would drop onto the spikes?
Yeah. So
Well,
like
then how many beds did they destroy that way?
apparently a lot.
That sounds really expensive.
Yeah. So most people say it just dropped down into like a
chute
thing
kind of thing?
below.
That would make more sense.
Yeah. But this one said that some people, I guess, said spikes.
Ugh.
There was also a version that said Lavinia would crush their skulls with her thighs.
Oh my god.
Really, there's a lot of options on the table.
Oh, thunder thighs. To the
Yeet.
max.
I'm like, damn girl, that's strong.
That is very strong.
Like, that's hot.
Yeah.
Maybe not for heads, but like, it'd be really cool if you could do like a watermelon.
Yeah, it
That's
would be.
impressive as hell. One day, John Peoples was traveling from Georgia to South Carolina when he stopped to ask the Fishers if there were any vacancies. Lavinia told him that they didn't have any rooms, but he was welcome to come inside to rest and have some tea. Another version said there was a room available and she invited John to have dinner with her. In all versions, she tries to give John some tea. And because John was too polite to tell her he didn't like tea, he dumps it out when Lavinia isn't looking. When he went to his room, he suddenly became worried he had divulged too much information to Lavinia and began to worry that he was going to become a robbery victim.
Why did he think that? Just like bad vibes?
I assume so.
Okay.
He decides to sleep in the chair by the door rather than the bed. He begins to doze off when he is awakened by a loud noise. He realized the bed he should have been sleeping in had disappeared into a deep hole beneath the floor.
How did they do this in the 1700s?
No, by now it was the 1800s. She was born in 1793.
Okay, how did they do it in the 1800s? This just seems like a lot of technology.
I mean, think about it. We had the printing press in the 1500s, I think.
Oh, okay.
So
there's ways.
Levers, and I think a lot of things were very mechanical and still had to be worked with humans. But I think you could get gears and pulleys and stuff.
Oh.
Make that happen.
Okay.
Yeah. Do I know the technical way? Absolutely not. But I'm assuming they seem pretty
That's not the important part of the story.
Terrified, John quickly jumped out the window, got on his horse, and fled to the authorities in Charleston. Police arrested the couple and searched the property. Some said they found hundreds of bodies buried in the basement and the yard. Others said they found hidden passages and items that could be traced to dozens of travelers, the herbal tea, deadly or otherwise, and a mechanism that could be triggered to open the floorboards beneath the bed. Some claimed that John would dismember the bodies after killing them and said that the Fishers had killed up to 20 to 30 men.
Wow.
Some said upwards of 120.
Jeez.
The Fishers pleaded not guilty and were ordered to stay in jail until their trial. After their trial in May, the jury didn't agree with their innocent plea and found them guilty of multiple robberies, murders, and sentenced them to hang. However, they were given time to appeal the conviction. During the wait, they occupied themselves by making an escape plan. Housed together in a jail that was not heavily guarded, they began making a rope from jail linens. On September 13th, 1819, they put their plan in place and used the rope to drop to the ground. John made it out, but the rope broke, leaving Lavinia trapped in a cell.
Oh, no.
Not willing to go without his wife, he returned to the jail, and afterward the two were kept under much tighter security.
Oh, a true guy.
We like John. In February 1820, the Constitutional Court rejected their appeal, and their execution was scheduled for later that month. A local minister named Reverend Richard Furman was sent in to counsel the pair if they had wished. John freely talked to Furman and is said to have begged the priest to save his soul, if not his life.
Aww.
However, Lavinia would have nothing to do with him. On the morning of February 18th, 1820, the Fishers were taken from the Charleston jail to be hanged on the gallows behind the building. And Lavinia did not go quietly. Some say she wore a wedding gown, thinking that they would never execute a married woman. Her final words were, quote, "If you have a message you want to send to hell, give it to me. I'll carry it."
Oh, jeez.
Then, before they could execute her, Lavinia jumped off the scaffold herself and died by suicide.
Oh, my God.
Some say it took longer than 15 minutes for her to finally die. Onlookers later said that they had never seen such a wicked start or chilling sneer as they did on Lavinia's face.
Jeez.
Almost immediately following her death, locals began to report seeing her face floating behind the window bars where she was held.
Oh, gross.
Then, after the Great Earthquake of 1886, people began to report her wandering around in other parts of the neighborhood and the Unitarian Cemetery just a few blocks away. Supposedly, she might have been buried there. The old jail building served as the Charleston County Jail from its construction in 1802 until 1939. One of the earlier structures was one of the locations where punishments and executions took place. Criminals faced whippings, brandings, torture, and food and water deprivation.
Jeez.
For horse thieves, their ears were sometimes nailed to a post before finally being sliced off altogether.
Ah!
The worst offenders might be burned at the stake, hanged, or drawn and quartered. Over the years, numerous structures were built, demolished, and rebuilt. Several apparitions have been reported, including several workers who saw the ghost of a jailer with a rifle on the 3rd floor. The phantom was said to have passed through the bars heading toward them before it vanished. Others have reported seeing a black man in ragged clothing wandering the halls. The man is seemingly unaware of the living or his surroundings. Several who have visited the historic building have claimed to have seen Lavinia Fisher in her wedding dress, describing it as bright red and white.
Okay.
Some say she manifests as a tingle along the skin or even scratches. It is said that Lavinia would leave 3 scratches if it was her that was trying to make contact.
Her or a demon.
Well, she's pretty pissed off, and she supposedly went to hell, so...
yep.
As you already know, Lavinia's last words were said in protest of her conviction.
Right.
So like I said, before she was hanged, her pastor and husband were begging her to just accept her fate and,
Go quietly.
Yeah. So the full quote is, "Cease. I will have none of it. Save your words for others that want them. If you have a message you want to send to hell, give it to me. I'll carry it." Bruce Orr is a modern historian and investigator and wrote 6 Miles to Charleston, the true story of John and Lavinia Fisher. He said it is important to understand what Charleston was like at the time to truly understand the story of Lavinia and John Fisher. Because they were real people.
Mm-hmm.
And they were hanged for crimes.
Mm-hmm.
But it was not their crimes.
Mm.
Dun, dun, dun.
Suspense.
At the time, the slave trade was an important revenue for the Charleston economy.
The slave trade you said?
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
So with a more progressive Congress, they authorized President James Monroe to send ships to suppress the slave trade, and the following year it was declared an act of piracy.
Oh.
The country was experiencing its first financial depression, the Panic of 1819, and it was mainly brought on from the unsteady global markets due to the Napoleonic Wars in Europe. Unemployment skyrocketed and foreclosures on land and homes were common occurrence. The corrupt and greedy officials took advantage of the less fortunate during this time. Charleston was one of the cities that was once wealthy and a thriving port, but it was in a financial decline. One solution to bolster the local economy was to sell land to the government. Governor John Geddes wanted a naval base in Charleston, and President Monroe would visit Charleston in 1820 as part of his larger tour of the South, looking for the right location for a base. Also during this time, criminal activity was on the rise due to the state of the economy, and highway robbery had become a real issue in many places, especially outside of major cities like Charleston. Wagon trade had become a successful industry in Charleston, and in early 1819, robbery on the road to Charleston was rampant. Citizens began arming themselves and were growing more and more angry about their situation. Many traders and travelers were lured into inns on the outskirts of town and robbed there or cheated out of their money in house gambling scams. On February 16, 1819, a lynch mob rode out of Charleston, ready to take the law into their own hands. They were sent to disperse an alleged band of robbers right outside Charleston. The mob came to a house commonly known as the 5 Mile House. I bet you can guess.
Is that 5 miles outside?
Where you can get its name. There's a small group of people inside, and the mob ordered them to leave. They were given 15 minutes to vacate the premises, and when they refused, the mob burned the house to the ground and forced the people out.
Oh, one way to do it.
Yep. Next, the mob traveled down the road to the 6 Mile House, which we know was owned by John and Lavinia Fisher.
Just 1 mile away.
Yep. The Fishers, along with the other occupants, chose not to fight and complied quickly when the mob showed up at their door. A lot of people have said that, John gave up quickly because he didn't want his wife to get hurt.
Aww.
He really, truly loved her.
That's so sweet.
And even, the whole escape thing, he didn't want to leave without her.
Right.
He could have, but he didn't.
He's a true one.
Honestly, though, if they wanted to, they would.
Aw. Mackenzie.
He's willing to stay in jail for her. Are you kidding me?
I know, that is really sweet.
Come on.
Who would do that?
I don't know. John Fisher.
Yeah. The one and only.
When the mob finally returned to Charleston, they left a man named David Ross to sit inside and watch over the property. According to David Ross, as soon as the mob left, he was attacked. He said a man named William Hayward cursed at him, collared him, and pushed him out the door.
What's collared mean? Oh, pull up by your collar.
I'm assuming.
Oh, okay.
William Hayward was actually the owner of the 5 Mile House and had decided to join his neighbors in reclaiming their property. I know, it sounds like a freaking joke, but
it does.
It's what the names were. Ross claimed that he got back into the house to reclaim his own belongings and that Hayward said, quote, "You damn infernal rascal, if you lay your hands on anything, I'll blow your brains out."
Okay.
Then David Ross claimed, quote, "Lavinia Fisher put violent hands on him, choked and boxed his head through a pane of window glass." So shoved him out a window.
Right.
See, he said as he was running away, Hayward and John Fisher continued to, quote, "beat him mercilessly with loaded whips." He also said that there were 2 other men and a woman whose names he did not know. He also claimed that when he was running away, someone shot at him. He said that they chased him to the bridge back into Charleston and that John Fisher yelled at him, quote, "You damn infernal rascal, if I ever catch you, I'll give you 100 lashes." So this was all in Ross's formal statement, claiming that two different men used the same phrase, "You damn infernal rascals."
Right.
Some other fishy activity. After the judge had signed the complaint, more names were added after the fact.
Convenient.
Including John and Lavinia Fisher, William Hayward, and 3 other names that are not really relevant. So there is a story involving a man named John Peoples, but it's slightly different than the original legend. So you can imagine, if you will, you are a traveler, you're coming up to a house, and all this stuff has happened.
Do I know all this stuff has happened?
No.
Okay.
You can well imagine that the people are quite sensitive at this moment and are maybe a little concerned about people that just show up at their house.
Oh, no.
Because last time that happened, it got burned down and their shit got stolen. So John Peoples was heading out of town and he decided to stop at the 6 Mile House to water his horses. And he and a young boy were arguing over the water buckets when, quote, 9 or 10 persons, among them a tall, stout woman, came out of the same house.
Oh, no.
He said they were armed with guns and pistols and made a violent assault on him, beating him with sticks and threatening him with guns. He claimed the woman appeared to be the most active in beating him. Peoples managed to get away, but was robbed of $35 to $40, and the group rode back towards the 6 Mile House. Peoples went to the sheriff to make a formal complaint and named Hayward, the Fishers, and others as the perpetrators.
How would he know?
Bruce Orr found copies of these records during his investigation and said that much of the statement is in different handwriting.
Ah, okay.
And John Peoples' names was also spelled differently in a couple of places.
Oh, goodness.
The sheriff formed a party of gentlemen to go back to the 6 Mile House and arrest all the occupants. A woman named Jane Howard was also taken in along with the other people named in the complaint. It should be noted that Jane Howard was a tall and stout woman. Lavinia Fisher was petite. When police searched the house, they found a hidden cowhide and knew a Charleston citizen had reported a cow being stolen. It was assumed that the creature had met its fate at the 6 Mile House. After the arrest and the search, the sheriff burnt the house and the surrounding buildings to the ground, and everything was destroyed.
Oh my gosh.
A newspaper at the time wrote in an article that 2 bodies had been found on the grounds of the 6 Mile House. One was skeletal and determined to most likely be the remains of an enslaved woman. This was common at the time because enslaved people were never given a proper burial.
Yeah.
The other body was more recent. It was believed the man had been shot about 10 days earlier at the 5 Mile House during some sort of scuffle, and then buried at the 6 Mile House. It was believed that the mob who were acting as law enforcement to bring in the alleged group of robbers had essentially done nothing wrong as long as they brought their prisoners to the sheriff. In fact, they had done the city a favor by capturing this gang of robbers. William Hayward and the Fishers were eventually charged with highway robbery, which was a hangable offense at the time, along with the assault on David Ross. Besides those 2 bodies, one that was probably there long before they ever got there, plus this other random person, nothing else was found. But the legend is that hundreds of bodies were found.
Right.
No skeletons or rotting bodies were ever found in the basement. But in 1830, a Scottishman wrote about the alleged crimes of the Fishers and had claimed that many skeletons had been found and were, quote, no doubt the remains of unfortunate travelers.
Ooh.
A decade was just enough time that the memories of the events had faded. And this was also the height of Penny Dreadfuls.
Oh.
So you can see how it kind of spun out from there.
There's a really good show called Penny Dreadful. It's really good. It's not safe for work. I told my coworker about it, and then he watched it at work one day because it was the finale and he couldn't wait. That's how good it is.
I'm glad. That sounds nice for him. Old City Jail was overcrowded and the prisoners were forced to live in terrible conditions. The men and women were not separate, which caused sexual assault on women to run rampant by both prisoners and guards.
Yeah.
At their arraignment, the Fishers pleaded not guilty, but were ordered to remain in jail until their trial, while their co-conspirators were released on bail. By the time of the trial, only William Hayward and the Fishers were being accused of the crimes. The names that had been added to the David Ross complaint had been scratched out. Hayward and the Fishers were indicted for assault and an attempted murder of David Ross. By the time of the trial, Hayward had jumped bail. However, he was later found and hanged in 1820. The jury found the Fishers guilty of their crimes against David Ross. However, the judge did allow them to appeal the case. So that is true. They still pled not guilty. Jury found them guilty. They were allowed to appeal their case.
Okay.
While they were waiting for their appeals, they were moved to a different part of the jail where they put like the debtors, like the people who owe money, I guess.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah. And so this was nicer, roomier, and less security than where they were before. So this is where they planned their escape. That also did happen. And John did make it out and Lavinia did not. And I think he ran away for like 3 days, but he refused to leave the area because he wasn't able to rescue his wife from jail.
Oh.
So John and this other guy escaped. They were caught 3 days later. But it seems that officials didn't really care about John Roberts, that's the other guy, his recapture, because there was a $500 reward for just the capture of John Fisher. Nothing about his friend who had escaped with him. He didn't matter. Just John Fisher.
Right, of course.
Okay. January 17th, 1820, the Fishers appeared before the Constitutional Court, and at the time they were convicted of highway robbery. This is a new charge.
I thought they already had highway robbery.
No. Their one from before, they were charged with, where is it? Oh, assault and attempted murder.
You said highway robbery at one point, that it was...
That was in the legend.
Oh, okay.
So we're talking about what really happened.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so this is the truth.
Oh, okay.
So they were charged with assault and attempted murder. They were appealing that case. They come to their appeals, and now they are all of a sudden convicted of highway robbery.
Okay.
This was a new charge for the attack on John Peoples.
I see.
The Fishers had never been officially charged or ever convicted of this crime in any court, anywhere, at any time. Because like I said, their appeal was supposed to be for the conviction in the case of David Ross, but instead, somehow magically, they're now convicted of highway robbery.
Right.
A completely new charge, and somehow it was upheld. The conviction was upheld in this new charge that just randomly appeared during their appeal. So they still lost their appeal, but now it's a new charge. Okay. Their execution date was set for February 4th, but they were given a reprieve because that day was the same as some sort of big race event. I don't know what it was, though.
Okay. No one wanted to miss the big race.
Supposedly, the officials of Charleston didn't want the execution of a married couple to overshadow the most important social and sporting event of the year.
Oh, my God.
So the new date was set for February 18th, a year and a day after the Fishers' arrest. As in the legend, John made his peace with his fate, found solace in prayer, while Lavinia refused and still hoped that she would be pardoned. Lavinia did have supporters outside of jail. A small group of women were petitioning the court to not execute Lavinia on the grounds that she was a white woman. However, there was something that this group of women didn't know. While it can't be known for sure, it is speculated that the sheriff, the governor, and other officials did know that Lavinia was actually a black woman, most likely mixed race and a former slave.
What?
She was often described as a beautiful woman with a darker complexion. Bruce Orr found official records that show the transaction of a Sally and Lavinia Fisher to a man named Dr. Joseph Glover in Charleston for $700.
Oh my gosh.
When enslaved people were born, they were given the last name of their owners. Lavinia was owned by Colonel George Fisher, who was John Fisher's uncle, who lived in North Carolina.
Oh.
It is believed that John had fallen in love with Lavinia, and his uncle had tried to sell her in order to separate the couple.
Oh my God.
But John followed Lavinia to Charleston, and the two ran away together. John and Lavinia were in a common law marriage, which they were able to pass because they had the same last name. They had to live outside of society, which explains why they were 6 miles outside of Charleston and associated with the other gangs that happened to be in that area. They could both be killed if they were ever found out. So they had to, keep on the DL. And there are other nefarious reasons for the Fishers and William Hayward to be run off their land. Nathaniel Hayward, William's dad, left his land to his son. But William Hayward was in debt to a lot of people, including James Fisher, John's father, who had petitioned the courts for the debts owed by William.
Oh.
William settled his debt by giving his land over to James Fisher, who then left it to his son, John.
Oh.
So John Fisher technically owns the 6 Mile house and the 5 Mile house. But they're like good friends. They figured their shit out, Everything's peachy with them. People even said they had become friends.
Right.
So he probably was still living there. But it was all technically
his property.
Okay. So how did they all end up being hung for crimes of highway robbery instead of the assault on David Ross?
Right.
Well, Colonel Fisher was still alive, which meant he would gain a foothold of the land, and at the time, assault and attempted murder were not hanging offenses, but highway robbery was.
How does that make any sense? Like the whole, like, how was highway robbery?
Oh,
a
that
hangable
I have no
offense?
idea. That I don't know.
Like, that's wild.
Yeah. That I don't know. But there's this law, and it says that land had to be unclaimed for a year before the government or anyone can claim it. President Monroe went to visit Charleston a couple months after the Fishers and Hayward were hanged.
Now the land is.
All that was left was empty plots due to the houses have being burnt down, which
Right.
would make a perfect place to build a naval base near the harbor, which would bring in lots of money for the city of Charleston.
My goodness.
The Fishers were hung a year and a day to their arrest,
Mm-hmm.
and it is speculated that this was so the government could legally claim their land.
Oh my gosh.
It should be noted, though, that this theory is speculation from Bruce Orr, but it's very circumstantial evidence, and it seems pretty damning to me.
Was it like fact a year and a day?
Mhm.
Well, then that's very suspicious.
Like I said, it's all circumstantial, but the way he's like, well, you have this and you have that.
Right.
Yeah. So
It's
they
like pink string.
changed-
It's not red string. It's pink string.
right. They changed the charge to highway robbery so that they could hang them so that the land was unclaimed.
Wow.
And it happened to be a year and a day. There was no sporting event that the city cared about.
Right.
And they just said that so that they could push it so that it'd be a year and a day.
How convenient.
How convenient. In conclusion, in history, explore different perspectives than the one you're most familiar with. And on the internet, make sure you always check the facts. And that is the story of Lavinia Fisher. Not
Interesting.
actually the first woman serial killer. Completely innocent woman who was charged and hanged for crimes she never committed.
Wow.
Mhm.
Because I saw her on Murderpedia
Mhm.
and it was like 0 kills ? And I was like, 0? Why are you on here?
Yep. Because she probably did none of the things that is said that she did.
Weird.
Yeah.
Wild.
Mhm.
Suspicious.
Conspiracy.
That's the good word. Yes.
History can be intriguing.
Well, that's why it's going to be very intriguing when you do our dark history facts.
I know.
Our next round through.
It's going to be stuff like, I'm hoping it's going to be stuff like this.
Yeah. Yeah.
There is a few things that I've been finding that it's like, it works out in the end, but it's a cool story. And it's like, you know,
Mhm.
we can have a happy ending here and there.
Right.
So
Every now and then.
yeah,
Well, nicely told. Nicely done.
thank you. I was real nervous that you were going to know who she was.
I knew the whole like Charleston jail thing,
Yeah.
but I didn't know all of the back stuff of it. You know what I mean?
The juicy.
Yeah.
The juicy thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And even now, when you're reading about it, people will say, they'll say the legend pretty much the same or a slight variation of it, and even say afterwards, but historians disagree with this. So, like, people are admitting, like, this is probably not that true.
Right.
But there's aspects of it that are true.
Yeah.
And people just inserted different details to make it more interesting.
As they do.
As they do.
Well, nicely done.
Thank you. What's spooky tea you pouring, Lauren?
Okay. My story is about Kimberly Renee Poole.
Okay. Tell me about her.
So Kimberly Renee Poole, 21, seemed to be your typical Winston-Salem, North Carolina, area housewife. She was married to her very devoted spouse, Brent Poole, who she had been with since she was 14.
Oh, she's 21. Okay,
Yeah.
sorry.
But there was another side of Kimberly Renee Poole. This side worked as a topless dancer at a strip club who craved jewelry, designer clothes, and having affairs with men and women alike.
Whoa, wait. Back up. Hold on. I need you to say that again.
So there was another side of Kimberly Renee Poole.
Okay, yes.
This side worked as a topless dancer at a strip club
Okay.
who craved jewelry.
Oh, craved. I thought you said created,
No,
which is why I was a little confused.
no, she craved
Craved.
jewelry, designer clothes, and having affairs with men and women alike.
At least she's equal opportunity?
So Kimberly Renee Poole, who went by Renee, was born on November 8th, 1976 in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and she had an awful upbringing. She grew up in a very toxic home with a lot of emotional abuse. She saw toxicity and dysfunctionality with her parents' marriage. At the age of 12, and trigger warning here, she started to be constantly raped and sexually assaulted by the adult son of one of the workers who worked for her father.
Ugh.
Her father owned a custom car shop. To make matters even worse, the car shop was located on their property.
Mm.
Renee dropped out of high school to focus on work and began working full-time so that she could move out of her house as soon as possible to escape the daily abuse that she faced.
Was this still happening when she was with her now husband? Since she was with him since she was 14?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
She did manage to successfully complete her GED, though.
Good for her.
When Renee turned 18, she married Brent Poole, who she had been dating since the age of 14, and by 19, the two had a daughter together named Katie, a daughter that Renee had been pregnant with when she and Brent got married. Renee wasn't working right after the birth of her daughter, but just a few weeks after the birth, Brent encouraged Renee to begin working again. He suggested that she work part-time as an exotic dancer.
He suggested that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I have two thoughts.
Okay.
One thought is kind of icky of him to do. The other thought, though, is does he think his wife is like that hot?
I don't know. She's very pretty.
Like, that's what I'm like, do I take this as a big compliment that my husband would want me to go be a stripper or work at a topless bar or whatever it is?
I'll get into it a little bit more about what she did.
Or is it because he's icky?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, hold that thought.
Okay.
So just about a month after Katie was born in 1996, Renee began dancing at the Silver Fox in Winston-Salem, North Carolina.
I feel like there is a lot of places called that.
Probably.
Or some fox variation.
Because like foxy, sexy.
Yeah.
She went by the stage name Carly.
Okay.
Carley.
Okay.
She was what was known as a clean dancer, meaning she never slept with any of her clients and she always wore her wedding band while dancing.
Okay.
And she was doing great at this job. She was working part-time and was making almost as much as Brent was. He worked full-time as an ASE, Automotive Service Excellence Certified Master Mechanic.
Okay.
So he's working full-time.
What a title.
She's part-time and she's making almost as much as him.
I'm telling you, I was on TikTok once, not once, at some point.
One of the many times.
One of the many times. And somehow there was a stripper who worked in Vegas that came up.
Oh my God.
She made as much as I make in a year, like take home in a weekend in cash.
See,
and she said it was slow.
When I hear that, I'm like, I am so doing the wrong thing.
Yeah.
If you want like a really awkward girl dancing, that's
correct.
Like your
if
king,
you want
I got
the
you.
least sexiest person alive to move around, by all means,
You got me.
I'm happy. I'm happy to oblige, but and I get stage fright, so you can well imagine.
Wait, look away real quick while I take this off.
Guys, don't look. Close your eyes. Turn around.
Don't pay attention to me. Just keep on with your conversation.
I'd have to be insanely intoxicated to do that.
Oh, yeah.
Which then means I couldn't do it.
Right.
So
not a profession for you?
But man, you got it and you can work it and you can do it.
Oh, absolutely.
Amen.
So Brent's family was quite against Renee dancing and strongly disapproved of it.
And I'm sure he had was in no hurry to explain to his family it was his idea.
Right. They were a very religious family, and they were worried that should others find out, their standing within the church would suffer. They were also very worried about their son and the poor life choices he was making, all because of Renee. Growing up, Brent was forbidden from watching R-rated movies while in high school.
Loser.
But when he started dating Renee, they would watch R-rated movies together. So instead of the family thinking that Brent was growing up, maturing, they immediately started to blame Renee for the changes they were seeing in their son, saying that she was a bad influence on him.
Even though it was his idea.
Yes.
Cool beans.
But according to one source, Renee felt manipulated by Brent, suggesting that she started working as the exotic dancer. So she felt manipulated into doing that. She felt that it more benefited him, as he would encourage friends to visit Renee while she was working and buy dances from her, which they did. At times, this led her to being put into uncomfortable positions with these friends.
That is so gross.
I know.
So it was for icky reasons.
Yeah, that's why I said hold your thought. Apparently, and according to one source, Brent had once suggested and encouraged Renee to bring home another dancer for a threesome. And not just that, but he enjoyed collecting and watching porn as well. In 1996, the two purchased a home and moved to the small town of Mocksville, North Carolina. But pretty quickly, the two started to face issues in their marriage, made even worse by the fact that they were so young.
Yeah.
So apparently,
Brent was icky.
Right. So according to this one source, and that source was called freekimberly.com, so we're slightly biased in this source.
Okay, I can see where this is going.
But according to this one source, Brent had once attempted a wife swap with another couple, an idea that Renee was not fully on board with.
Yeah.
And due to their age, they both ended up having affairs.
Okay.
Renee had 3 with 3 different men. Some believe they were sexual predators trying to exploit her vulnerability and trying to take advantage of the fact that she was having marital issues.
I mean, it's possible.
It is. One of those men, Danny Shrewsbury, was not too happy when Renee broke it off with him. Out of revenge, he called Brent to tell him about the affair that he had been having with Renee.
I'm sure he lost his shit as if he wasn't doing the same thing.
Right. The other man, Robert Cummings, would
the irony.
He would also constantly call and harass Brent when he was at work. And one of them today is a registered sex offender. I'll get into the third man in a bit. So soon enough, the two realized that they had
I don't
issues.
really like any of these people anymore.
No. And this wasn't the marriage that they wanted to have, so they both began trying to make real progress in their marriage and truly make it work.
Okay.
So in an attempt to do this, on Tuesday, June 9th, 1998, Renee, her husband Brent, and their daughter took a trip to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Now we're in South Carolina.
Okay.
They had rented a room at an oceanfront hotel, Carolina Winds, to celebrate their 3-year wedding anniversary.
God, it feels like they've been together forever.
Wow. According to Renee, this is how their night went.
Mhm.
So they hired a babysitter to watch over their daughter while Renee and Brent celebrated their anniversary.
They hired a babysitter in a town they had never been to.
That was my thought too.
Okay.
Yeah. The babysitter arrived 15 minutes after the agreed upon meetup time as she had gotten lost on the way, but Katie was already asleep when the babysitter arrived. So we're all good. Once she arrived, Renee and Brent headed out for their anniversary. They planned to get dinner and drinks and just spend some time together. Their first stop was Dick's Last Resort. Have you been there?
Yes. How fucking romantic.
We were randomly talking about that at dinner the other night.
God, this is such a Myrtle Beach move.
Oh, I know. But when they arrived, the line was too long, so they decided to try something else. This time they tried Fast Eddie's. That one worked out, and while there, they had ice cream, a few drinks, and played some pool. You have to remember, they're like 21. So it's not like, Joe and I being like, oh, let's go to the melting pot.
I would still not want to go to Dick's Last Resort as a 21-year-old for my anniversary.
I wouldn't either.
So,
But we're children. So they decided.
well, and it doesn't sound like either one of them has a very good thought going on in their heads. So,
No.
I can't imagine good decision-making was happening at this moment.
So after their ice cream, drinks, and pool, they decided it was time to head back, so they started to make their way back to their hotel. But on the way, they stopped at an ATM where they took out $50 to pay the babysitter. They then stopped at Wings to buy a beach towel. Wings is kind of like your
I know.
Sensations.
Yeah.
Because they wanted to make love by the water on the beach. So this is something that Brent had been looking forward to. Leading up to the beach trip, he had written Renee a few notes where he stated he was excited about their plans to make love on the beach.
You could stand up your butt.
Well, that's why they got the towel, Mackenzie.
Mm,
They're prepared.
I guess they don't move around much.
Yeah. You'd be in one position.
You had to be careful.
Unless you get a couple beach towels.
Yeah, exactly.
So they stopped at a gas station nearby so they could use the bathroom beforehand. Then they got to the hotel, parked in the hotel parking lot, and headed down to the beach, where they leisurely started to walk north along the beach. Their walk was uneventful, just passing by a group of young adults as they passed the beach access point on 82nd Avenue. They continued walking until they found a little secluded area, a little ways past 82nd, to have their fun on the beach.
Mm-hmm.
When they finished up, and as they were heading back to their hotel, they noticed the same group of young adults way off in the distance, still at the spot that they had seen them earlier. But as they were walking south along the beach this time back to their hotel, they passed the spot where the group had been, and they weren't there anymore. So they had moved away.
Yeah.
At this point, it was around 11:38 p.m. They noticed a man walking north.
11:38 p.m.
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
They noticed a man walking north who they passed. They then noticed him walking not far behind them, so meaning he had turned around and was now following them.
Okay.
This must have worried them because once they noticed this, Renee and Brent picked up their pace.
Okay.
Suddenly, according to Renee, the man appeared in front of them. He had run up to them from behind and got in front of them.
Mm-hmm.
This was between 81st and 82nd Avenue. He held up a gun to the couple. He was fully clothed, wearing dark clothing, gloves, and an assault-type tactical ski mask with one large opening for the eye area.
Mm-hmm.
He then forced Renee and Brent to lay down, which is when he robbed them. After he took their things, Brent stood up and the two of them exchanged a few words. After those words were said, the man tackled Brent to the ground, where Brent began begging for his life. This is when Brent was shot once in the head.
Just one time.
The gun misfired 3 times before a second shot hit Brent again in the head. So he was shot twice in the head.
He was shot once, and then the guy goes to shoot him again?
And it misfired a couple times.
Okay.
And then it worked and he shot him again.
Okay. In the head.
In the head.
Okay.
During this time, with her face still down, Renee had heard the gun click twice, then heard the first shot followed by another. After that, the
He
man...
didn't move?
She didn't move?
Yeah.
I guess not. I don't think I would move if someone was shooting a gun.
But I would have already been looking once my husband had gotten up.
Yeah.
Because obviously he's not watching me. So I would be looking up to see what happens. I would not have been kept my head down.
So
well, obviously something ends up with her. So I'm just trying to be sketchy. Trying to find the holes in her story.
Good.
Mhm.
So after that, the man ran off in the direction of the sand dunes. At 11:43 p.m., so this all happened in like 5 minutes, Renee flagged down beach patrol. In his report after the incident, Patrol Officer Brown said, quote, "She waved her hands trying to get my attention and then came up to my driver's side window. The woman appeared to be crying and extremely upset." Shortly after that, at 11:45, Beach Patrol made their call for help and soon paramedics arrived. Brent was taken to the hospital but sadly passed less than an hour later. Renee was taken back to the station where she was interviewed twice, but while there, she had to run to the restroom multiple times to throw up throughout the night and early morning. It was reported that she also broke down and cried multiple times throughout the night, though there are other reports that stated that she showed very little emotion. So we have these two different reports. I bet you can tell freekimberly.com said she was emotionally distraught.
I'm sure they did.
The newspaper said she was not.
Okay.
But like we say, people grieve differently, so who are we to judge?
Correct.
On what was now Wednesday, June 10th, Renee had her first interview at 12:45 a.m. by Detective Joyce. She was then interviewed again at 3:37 a.m. by Detective King. Both interviews were for the purpose of getting a clear picture of the story and seeing if Renee could provide any details about the assailant.
Mm-hmm.
During her interview, she talked about how she and Brent had been having issues in their marriage and that she did, in fact, have a few affairs. The men named were Danny Shrewsbury, Robert Cummings, and John Boyd Frazier. She offered each man's contact information when asked for. Sometime around this point, one of the detectives on the case, Detective Altman, returned to the station. He had gone to the hospital to try unsuccessfully to get a statement from Brent, because Brent passed away.
Mm-hmm.
But he had been able to get into contact with the Poole family and spoke to Brent's parents, Bill and Agnes. They told the detective that Renee had to be involved in the murder and that the assailant was probably that John Boyd Frazier guy, a patron of the club where she worked.
Okay, skirt.
Okay, what?
Skirt.
Okay.
I'm all for believing and seeing that this situation looks a little sketch right now, given that she was, at this point, the only witness.
Mm-hmm.
However, her in-laws don't particularly care for her.
They don't like her at all.
And their reasons are definitely not her fault. It's her husband's, because he's the icky one.
But in their eyes, he's not the icky one.
Yeah,
She's the bad influence.
Taint the whole thing.
Right.
Mm.
Right. They were very insistent of this, saying that it had to be Renee and John, and kept telling the detectives that they really needed to look into the two of them.
Mm.
By 5:10 a.m. that day, Renee was interrogated by Detectives King and Altman, now as a suspect. So I got some of this information, like I said, from the website called freekimberly.com. So again, maybe biased.
Her child? Child with the babysitter? That
never went into detail. I assume she gets somewhere at some point because she'll be reunited with her. Don't worry.
Okay.
So they said that during Renee's interrogation, the Reed interrogation technique was used.
What's
so this
that?
is pretty much telling her that they knew that she did it and that she should save herself and confess.
Okay.
They also lied and told her that they knew that it had been John Boyd Frazier who had killed Brent and that they had gone to John's residence and that he wasn't home.
Isn't it crazy that they can do that?
Right.
Like, that's absolutely insane.
Right. Like, you can, it seems very sketchy and seems
It's very unethical.
Yes.
But it's not against the law, and that's very annoying to me.
Uh-huh.
Because I'm like, well, why can't I lie then?
Right. Right.
You can lie.
Trust me, I have so many of those feelings. So the facts, according to that website, are that Winston-Salem police had checked John's home, but not only was he home, but when they answered the door, it appeared as if he had been sleeping.
Okay.
So like that he was there all night.
Oh, yeah. So then he couldn't have done it because he was just woken up.
Right. His residence was approximately 240 miles away from Myrtle Beach, which would have been about a 4-hour drive.
Damn.
So technically, if they're interviewing her at like 5 a.m, this all happened at like midnight. He could have gotten home from midnight to 5 a.m.
Yes, but he wouldn't
But
have appeared sleepy.
right. Apparently, Renee was also never read her Miranda rights at any point in the night either. But the whole time she denied any involvement. She also said she didn't think it was Frazier, as she didn't think he would do something like that. But she reiterated that the assailant was wearing a ski mask and was covered, so she wasn't able to make an idea anyways.
Mm-hmm.
The detectives then brought up the theory that Renee had been the one to shoot Brent. And then after shooting him, she hid the gun. They tested her hands for any gunshot residue, but it came back negative. At 8 a.m. on Wednesday, June 10th, Renee's interrogation was over and she was able to return home. Obviously, she can't be held if there's not enough information. So her parents came to pick...
she could have left at any time. She wasn't arrested.
Right.
But she probably didn't know that.
Right. I mean, she's 21.
Exactly.
Her parents came to pick her and her daughter up. So I guess they had the daughter. I'm not really sure how that happens, but now she's back with their daughter.
Okay.
So investigations of witnesses then began. Police had begun interviewing a few bystanders who had been at the beach the night of the incident.
Like the group of kids?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
18-year-old Chris Hensley had been walking south along the beach and had even passed by Renee and Brent when they were having relations. He recalled that he had seen Brent wearing a striped shirt on top of someone who was obviously Renee. So he's on top.
Yeah. She
Now-
got sand up her butt.
Yeah. Well, she's on the towel.
Okay.
Hensley said he continued walking south and eventually passed a man wearing dark clothes who was walking north. He was able to give the police a composite of the man who looked nothing like John Boyd Frazier.
So when the kid saw him, he wasn't wearing a mask.
Correct.
Okay.
But apparently even this composite did little to draw the police away from their suspicions of Frazier. By mid-afternoon on June 10th, news had spread about what had happened on the beach, that vacationers had been robbed and one had been shot and killed. This terrified others who were vacationing in the area, which was not good, as Myrtle is a very big tourist destination. This put a lot of pressure on the Myrtle Beach police to quickly try and resolve the case.
Oh, now I'm starting to think maybe I am going to go with the website and want to free Kimberly. Like, I don't know. Every time I think I'm like, yeah, she did it. And then I'm like, well, maybe not.
I know. So on June 11th, the Myrtle Beach police held a large press conference where they assigned a bulk of their resources to the case. The Poole family also put up a $50,000 reward for information that could help solve the case. So fellow coworkers,
That's
friends...
a lot of money.
Yeah. So fellow coworkers, friends, nosy neighbors, all kinds of people were calling in to give tips about Renee. Some gossip, some useful, but overall nothing big. There was a lot of focus on Renee and Frazier, with Poole's family being convinced that the pair of them was responsible. So let's go over who John Boyd Frazier was to Renee.
I don't know. 3 names, man. You got to be careful with those guys.
Yes, you do. We always say that.
3 names or 2 first names.
Well, this is 3 names, so.
No, I mean like 2 first names, like as in the first and last name.
Oh, yeah.
But then if you go by a 3-namer.
Well, I think he probably goes by John Frazier, but they said his middle name all the time.
Right, exactly. That's what I mean. Like, I'm sure John Wayne Gacy just went by John Gacy. But we all know him as.
That's true. Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
So John and Renee met in March of 1998. Renee,
and what year is this that this all happened?
98.
Okay, so this is the summer of 98 then?
Hold on, let me scroll up. Yeah, so this all happened in June of 98.
Okay.
And she met John in March of 98.
Okay. So it's like very recent affair.
Yeah, like 3-month affair kind of.
Okay.
So Renee was meeting up with a friend for a girls' night and was introduced to John. He happened to be someone who her friend knew and ended up bringing along, which, by the way, is a major no-no for girls' night. No boys are allowed.
Yeah.
But anywho, so this friend brings John.
How do you know it was a girls' night? What if they're just going out?
It said girls' night.
Well.
Yeah, they were going out for a girls' night out.
Yeah, that's...
Which means just girls, no boys.
So it's really, at the end of the day, it's the friend's fault.
Yeah.
She started this whole thing.
A friend whose name we don't even know. Anywho, Renee, her friend, and John all got dinner that night, and right away, John seemed to be into Renee. Over time, he started to do the little things that Brent didn't, little things that made Renee feel special and appreciated. She later told police that he made her, quote, feel good. He, quote, lit her cigarettes, opened car doors, and did other little things that her husband had quit doing. The bar is so low.
So low!
Brent spent a lot of time gaming on his computer or out with friends. Renee said, quote, he blows all of his money, Lord knows on what. He doesn't make a truck payment. His mom makes his truck payment. He has no future. He's in debt, bounces checks. He had nothing for me.
I mean, okay. Then leave him.
Right.
Like,
right. So the attention from John made Renee feel important to someone. By April of that year, Renee and John were having an affair. In May of 1998, Renee and Brent briefly separated, and Renee, with Katie, temporarily moved in with John. She didn't want to move in with her parents due to the toxic environment that was there.
That's fair.
John even assured Renee that he worked a lot, so he wouldn't be home that much anyways.
Okay.
Over the next week or so, Brent fully realized what was happening in his marriage and really started to work hard to get Renee back. He invited her over one day where he had 2 cards and a bouquet of flowers waiting for her.
Okay.
In the cards, he spoke about how sorry he was for not being there for her and not being the husband she deserved. He told her that he recognized that there were issues and he wanted to make it work. The two, both wanting the relationship to work out, agreed to start attending marriage counseling together. On May 12th.
Sounds smart and reasonable.
Right. So May 12th, she hadn't been gone for long. She would move back in with Brent and the two would reconcile their marriage. It appeared as if John had accepted and respected Renee's decision regardless of how he felt about Brent.
Okay.
Renee told John she hoped they could remain friends, though.
Okay.
But on May 30th, John would run into the couple at the Silver Fox, where Renee worked, and cause a scene. He threatened Brent and challenged him to fight out in the parking lot, which Brent refused. The couple left, and on their way home, he pulled over and told Renee that they couldn't live like this. So Renee suggested they get a restraining order against John.
That escalated quickly.
I guess it's the whole, like, he's your ex, you know, the man you had an affair with, so maybe not an ex. Now he's threatening us when we're out, like, you know.
I don't know. I feel like the first time I would just look at it as a bar fight, but maybe it wasn't like that.
The next morning, May 31st, John emailed Brent. His email mainly said that he should leave Renee, that she would keep cheating on him and she wasn't worth it. He said that both he and Brent had been fools to have been with her, and that they shared some bro bond over this fact of being fools with her. He said that he had more information on all of these things that Renee had done without Brent's knowledge, and he hoped Brent would reach back out so they could talk about it.
Oh.
But Brent didn't take the bait and never replied to John.
What do you think? You think he's blowing smoke because he's upset that she left him?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
So there's just a lot of like unsure things in this whole story. So apparently, read only on freekimberly.com, in his planner, John had memorialized that day. On May 30th, he wrote, "Renee gone forever." On May 31st, he wrote, "Fuck you, Renee."
That was really written in his planner?
According to freekimberly.com.
Okay.
Which is the only place I've read that.
Okie dokie.
But other websites did say that his coworker had overheard him talking on the phone, like kind of like bashing her and saying all this stuff. And so the coworker reported it to police and was like, "I know he was talking about Renee. I know he's doing all this stuff." And the cops were like, "How do you know that? Did he say Renee's name in the call?" And he goes, "No, I just assumed that that's who he was talking about." And they go, "Well, we can't take that. Like, that's hearsay."
Yeah.
I think that's hearsay.
Yeah.
Okay. I just don't want people to be like, "You're so stupid."
Oh, no.
Oh. All right, now we're back to June 11th.
Okay.
Renee's back home in North Carolina.
Okay.
The Myrtle Beach police are really trying to figure out the crime, focusing almost solely on Renee and John. Detective Altman gave Renee a call to see if she remembered anything else about the attack or the assailant. He was pretty much told by Renee that the assailant was a white man. So this is what Renee's saying, that the assailant was a white man who used, quote, "a gangsta type of slang at times."
Gangsta type of slang. Okay.
She also clarified that 4 rings had been stolen from her, something that was already known, and how $80 or $90 in cash was missing from Brent's wallet along with his watch. Again, something already known.
Okay.
The wallet, I guess, was also missing at this point.
Okay.
So I don't know how you know that the cash was missing.
Maybe she just like included it because there's cash in the wallet.
Oh, probably. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they had picked up the $50 from the ATM, had some money left over. Good point. Altman also questioned why they had relations outside and if that was the reason they came to the beach in the first place, which Renee said no to. She said that it was Brent's idea to have relations outside and they decided on the beach to celebrate their 3-year anniversary. So they were going to have the 3-year anniversary. Brent's like, "Cool, let's have sex outside." Well, he wanted to have sex outside somewhere. So they decided on the beach for their anniversary and they're like, "Oh, why don't we do it outside there?"
Okay.
That night, June 11th, the Poole family had a gathering at their house to remember Brent. Family and friends attended as well as Renee. She noticed, though, that there were no photos of her in the photo collage that was going on.
Oh, my God.
And that photos she had been in had been cropped to exclude her.
Damn.
Yeah.
Wow. At that point, you just have 2 separate ones.
So that's why you go, bye.
Yeah. You have your own and let them do their thing.
Right. So the police were still focused on Renee and John, so Renee was questioned again 2 more times. She was questioned once on July 12th. This one was in the presence of her attorney. And then she was questioned again on June 13th, but this time her attorney was not present. It was during the second interview that Renee admitted that she and her boyfriend, John Fraser, had planned her husband's murder.
What?
At this point, the cops were asking her more questions, all that she was unable to really answer. But I guess she was released at that point. Brent's wake and viewing were held on Saturday, June 13th. At his wake, the night before his funeral, around 9 p.m., Renee would be arrested on charges of obstruction of justice, and where she would be officially claimed as a suspect in the death of Brent. So they were saying all those questions that she couldn't answer about everything, she was keeping the information to her, so obstruction of justice.
Yeah, okay.
She was taken to the station, and just before 11 p.m., she would be interrogated. On June 14th, Renee was charged with murder, conspiracy, and obstruction of justice. She was charged with capital murder, the death penalty, which prevents bail.
Ooh. How did that go to capital? Okay, never mind. Keep going.
She was held at the J. Rubin Long Detention Center in South Carolina for a year and a half before her trial, all without bail. She even celebrated her 23rd birthday in prison.
Oh my God.
She's so young.
She's so young.
A few weeks before her trial, the capital murder charge was dropped. Her trial began on her 23rd birthday, November 8th, 1999.
Scorpio.
Her mother got her an attorney, Bill Diggs, who was eventually disbarred, if that says anything about how good he was.
Okay, this is just a fucking train wreck.
I know.
Oh my God.
I had gotten so far into this case that when it started to get really confusing, I was like, well,
we're here.
I'm too far in. I can't stop now.
Okay.
Renee was offered a plea deal by the prosecution. They said that if she could provide them with the location of the gun and admit to conspiracy and murder, she would only get 30 years.
Okay.
That is if the judge accepted the plea deal.
Okay.
And again, LOL at freekimberly.com. So I'm just going to go with a straight quote, like what this website said about the judge.
Okay.
Quote, The plea deal was a recommendation of 30 years pending approval by the presiding judge, Judge Cottingham, who was featured in the February 1994 edition of Red Book Women's Magazine as one of the nation's most sexiest judges with whom a woman could never be able to receive a fair trial. Cottingham is a man.
I assumed.
But so they're trying to say, like,
he's too hot.
He's too hot and he's really sexist that, like, women will never have a free trial.
What does
like
him
a good
being
trial.
attractive have anything to do with him being sexist?
I don't know.
Like, that would just easily, I don't care how attractive you are. You're an asshole and you don't give women a free trial, like a fair trial.
Right.
Why?
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
That's why I said I'm just going to quote straight from the website.
Okay.
Renee did not want to take the plea deal, constantly maintaining that she was innocent, that she didn't know where the gun was because she wasn't involved in the murder.
But you said that you planned that.
I know.
Why would you say that?
Her story keeps changing. She keeps going back and forth between things.
Honey.
So Brent's wallet was eventually found on July 5th, soaking wet a few blocks away from the crime scene. It still contained bank cards, a family photo, and $8 or $9 in cash, with all of the big bills gone. This was the only stolen item that was recovered.
Okay.
Also, it should be noted that it was found while Renee was in jail.
Oh.
Yeah. So if someone had stolen it, it couldn't have been her if it's found now that she's in jail, kind of thing.
Yes.
There were, of course, witnesses that were called in for the trial. We have Chris Hensley, who spoke about the man in dark clothing that he had seen the night on the beach.
Uh-huh.
Then we have two more potential eyewitnesses who were called forward, Donna and Mark Hobbs. They had called the police a week after the incident. They had been sitting at home when the news story aired. They knew they had seen the man, so they immediately called. They were brought in a week after their call, so 2 weeks later, to look at a photo lineup to see if they could identify the man that they had seen on the beach that night, the assailant. The Hobbs had also been staying at the Carolina Winds Hotel celebrating their wedding anniversary, oddly enough.
Okay.
They had also decided to take a romantic stroll on the beach the same night that Renee and Brent did. They testified at both Renee and John's trials that they had seen John Boyd Frazier on the beach that night. They'd been able to pick that he had been the man wearing the dark clothes.
Oh.
They had successfully picked him out of a lineup.
Uh-oh.
But against them, the night on the beach, it was dark because it's nighttime.
Yeah.
The man they saw was over 20 feet away, and they had just passed by him.
Bro.
This had been 1 week after they saw him when they called the police,
Huh.
and another week before they came in for the lineup. So 2 weeks have passed since they see this man who they're passing on the beach.
No.
Some credibility could have been questioned when the Hobbs were unable to recall what their waiter had looked like at dinner that night. So you remember the face of a man you passed by on the beach,
A week
but
later.
you don't. 2 weeks later,
2 weeks later.
but you don't remember your waiter who served you over the course of hours,
in light.
who you spoke with in light, up close. Okay. Apparently, according to Free Kimberly, the Poole family had paid each Donna and Mark $10,000 for the cooperation in the trial. With identifying John, though I didn't read this anywhere else, but freekimberly.com said that the Poole family pretty much bribed them and said, you're going to tell them that it was John who you saw walking on the beach.
Oh, Lord.
The police and prosecution seemed to disregard Chris Hensley's composite, even though he had been more aware of his surroundings that night than, say, the Hobbs. But a wild fact, this is just, again, one website, but still interesting.
Is it Kimberly's?
Yep. Kimberly.com had a whole detailed description of the night. So I'm like, of course I need to read this. So
Sure.
it gives you good facts, but it also throws in a lot of like, they
Therefore,
didn't
this
care about
means-
her.
yeah.
She had an awful upbringing. Like all
like
these
speculation, opinions.
yes.
Yeah.
Ton of opinions.
Yeah.
So I went through it and I just tried to grab the facts.
Yeah.
So some of the facts that I did grab are like some things where I'm like, are you adding into this or is this an actual fact?
Sure.
So, with this wild fact, the composite that Chris had come up with for who he saw at the beach resembled an alternate suspect in the case who wasn't being looked into. We never find out the name of this alternate suspect, but apparently he's being looked into.
He was not being looked into.
Not being looked into.
Okay.
Through new information found, this alternate subject had been criminally stalking and maliciously keeping tabs on Renee, starting at least 6 months prior to the murder.
What?
Apparently, around November 1997, the suspect had installed a powerful spyware and remote access program on Renee and Brent's computer. How he did this, I'm unsure. But apparently the program was so strong and powerful that this suspect could read their emails, private chats, turn on and off their webcam, access files and programs, see the sites they were visiting, view their screen all in real time. He could essentially act as Renee and Brent online.
And the website, her website is saying that the composite from the witness is this guy
Looks just like this guy.
that we don't know the name of.
Correct.
Okay.
So more to this, other bystanders at the beach that night, as well as Renee and Brent, had noticed a white van with a number sticker on one of the windows near the beach.
Okay.
This alternate suspect's friend, who was living with him at the time, owned and drove a white van with a number sticker on it. The police
Okay.
apparently dismissed this information.
Mm-hmm.
And more to this, the suspect's wife checked herself into a psychiatric hospital after the news about Renee and Brent was released. And just 2 weeks later, she was almost killed in a car accident under mysterious circumstances. She would soon divorce his alternate suspect before moving across the country. So just a very weird side story.
Okay.
Though Renee denied being involved from the beginning, her story did eventually change, and apparently at some point during her trial, she testified that she had her husband killed because she was having an affair with John Boyd Frazier and wanted to leave her husband, but didn't want to share custody of her daughter.
Okay.
So that's why she had to kill him so that custody wouldn't be shared.
Wait.
Yes.
Hold on. So at first she didn't do it.
Correct.
Then she conspired to do it, but she didn't know any details.
Yeah, her and Frazier talked about doing it.
Okay. And then now, yes, she did plan it with somebody else.
No, still with John.
To be with him, though.
Yes. Like her and John planned it together
Mm-hmm.
so that Brent's out of the picture.
Yeah.
She has custody of her daughter.
So she's still saying yes to the fact that she co-planned this.
At this point, yes.
But is she not saying that she knows more stuff? Like, is she still denying that part?
We haven't really gone back to that. I mean, she denied being involved and then her story's changed. So now we're at the point that it's John Frazier and her planning it.
Okie dokie.
So she didn't want to share custody of her daughter. And also, Brent had a very hefty life insurance policy on him.
Oh, God.
Renee said that she and Frazier planned the murder, but she didn't know if Frazier would actually have the courage to go through with it. So they planned it, but she didn't think it would actually happen.
That's a stupid excuse.
After the jury trial, Renee was found guilty on November 13th, 1999, and was sentenced to life imprisonment for murder with no possibility of parole and 5 years for criminal conspiracy. So just cherry on top.
Her lawyer clearly was
awful. And I mean, everywhere that I read his name, they said, disbarred. Like, so he's gone. He's no longer a lawyer.
Like, whether or not what she's saying is true, or if she thought it was going to make her look a certain way, or whatever it was, and he let it happen.
Right.
Good Lord.
The prosecutor from the case believes wholeheartedly that Renee is guilty, and she is glad she was found to be. She called Renee, quote, an evil master manipulator and the guiding force behind the murder.
Mm-hmm.
Since then, there have been many appeals made by Renee and her team, but nothing has panned out, with most being dismissed. So I read all of those. They were like, you have some good arguments, but then some of them were just stupid. So overall, John ended up being convicted twice for killing Brent, which I didn't know how that's possible with double jeopardy.
How did he Yeah.
So prosecutors had agreed that John and Renee were having an affair and had together plotted to kill Brent.
So was it conspiracy to commit, or to...
Well, she got charged with conspiracy.
Oh.
So initially, John had been convicted of first-degree murder and 2 other charges in February of 2000 and was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole.
Okay.
But the South Carolina Supreme Court overturned that conviction and life sentence. So in 2005, he was convicted again for murder, armed robbery, and conspiracy.
If you get something overturned, you can still get...
So I said, so maybe double jeopardy doesn't count because his conviction was overturned.
Correct.
Okay.
It's if he got acquitted.
Okay.
Then they couldn't try to charge him again. They'd have to find a new one.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking. I have that in my notes. I said I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah.
So anywho, as of 2010, he was in jail serving a 30-year prison sentence in South Carolina after his 2005 conviction of charges for first-degree murder, armed robbery, and conspiracy.
And remind me, what were hers again?
Murder and conspiracy.
But how long? She got a long time.
She got life.
Okay.
Because they believe she was the mastermind. He was just like the actor.
So they gave her the max for conspiracy.
No, she only got 5 years for conspiracy. She's charged with murder and conspiracy.
Oh, she's charged with murder.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
okay,
She got
okay,
the
okay.
life sentence for murder.
Oh, okay.
5 years for conspiracy.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Mhm.
I confused myself. When you said she got conspiracy, I thought that meant that she didn't get murder.
No. She did get murder.
Okay.
He got first-degree murder, armed robbery, and conspiracy. But then his murder, they upheld his murder conviction, but overturned the robbery charge.
So he now just has murder.
Murder and conspiracy.
Okay.
Overall, the court ruled that prosecutors, quote, offered substantial evidence of Frazier's guilt, though his attorney argued that the prosecutors failed to offer evidence that even placed Frazier at the crime scene in the first place.
Yeah.
But justices determined that there was circumstantial evidence to support the armed robbery charge against Frazier, which, again, I thought circumstantial evidence wasn't enough. Maybe why the one was overturned then.
Well, you can have circumstantial evidence, and if you make it look like the circumstantial evidence is pretty damning evidence, then it's You got them to believe you.
Yeah. John's mother, Jane Lovett, reached out to Wake Forest University's Innocence and Justice Clinic about her son's innocence.
I know, that's what's crazy is I'm like, I get where the whole like conspiracy against Renee has come from, but to just go with this guy as the one who did it because he's the most recent affair.
Right.
I'm like, that's insane.
And because he had like this argument with Brent at the nightclub.
Right.
You know?
Like, so you're going to believe her that he was involved, but you're not going to believe her that she didn't do it? What the fuck?
Carol Tarowski, the clinic's director, said that it may take a while for the students to finish their work on Fraser's case, as it is a very complicated case, but they're looking into it. Still looking into it at this point.
Do you know when did mom reach out? What year? Do you know? Does it say?
No. I don't know what year. Probably at least 2010.
Okay.
But I didn't find anything, that he was like released or anything when I was looking.
Okay.
There are many who believe that Renee was wrongfully convicted, with websites, Facebook, and the like talking about her innocence and how she needs to be freed. Since in prison, she has maintained a very healthy relationship with her daughter, Katie. She also works full-time in the prison, transcribing textbooks to Braille.
That's cool.
She had actually scored a 96% on the Braille formats certification exam and is now certified by the National Braille Association.
That's really cool.
I know. And she is held in very high regard by her fellow prisoners, coworkers, and supervisors. To this day, she maintains her innocence and claims that she had no involvement in Brent's death. She also claims that she still doesn't know who robbed them and who killed Brent.
Did she ever say why she said that she was?
Nope.
She never felt the need that maybe I should clarify why I said that. And now I'm saying it's not true.
At least nothing that I found said anything.
Oh.
Yeah.
Convenient.
Yeah. So, yeah, that is the case of Kimberly Renee Poole and apparently this love triangle.
I don't like it.
I don't either.
I don't like it.
Because I saw it at first. I was like,
basically unsolved.
Love triangle. And I'm like reading through it and I was like, well, Free Kimberly is making a lot of really good points. And it's like, there is freekimberly.com where they say she's innocent. But then you also have John's mom who's like, well, I think he's innocent. So it's like, it's not just one person's like, Kimberly's innocent. It's like two people are both like, this case is kind of sketchy. I could not find anything about their first trials. All the information online was about the appeals.
Interesting.
Nothing about their actual trials, which I also thought was weird.
Yeah. Did you look at the newspapers?
No, I did not look at the newspapers.
Sometimes they have stuff that the internet doesn't.
Yeah. No, I didn't look into it because I was already pretty long at that point. And I was like, you know what? If I can't find it here, we're just not going to
You do have to cut yourself out.
Yep.
Or cut yourself off at some point. It is very interesting that it wasn't there. It sounds like this coming to light based on appeals, not because of what initially happened.
Right.
That's so bizarre.
Because I found hers, 2 of hers, I found 1 of his, but only the appeals, not their actual trials.
Interesting.
I know. So I'm like, is she innocent? Is she guilty?
It's like, again, you can make an argument for both.
Yep.
But there was a lot of things that are just left hanging there.
Yeah.
And it's, but okay, if we think about it, they found the wallet when she was in jail, right? A couple blocks away?
Yeah, from the crime scene.
Okay. They still were not able to find the gun.
Correct.
Okay.
They've never found
been able to find
it. Gun has never been found.
Right. Why, if that's what she was going to do, why would she just throw the wallet away and not the gun? Like, of all things to throw away.
Right.
Don't you think that would be the first choice?
And it was also weird, too. Like, again, she doesn't want to admit her guilt if she did do it. But they're saying, tell us where the gun is and you'll get 30 years. You won't get life. Tell us where the gun is, you get 30 years.
Right.
And she wouldn't even do that because she didn't know where the gun was because she's like, I didn't do it.
I feel like it makes sense that you're not going to find watch and jewelry because that's probably going to be sold.
Right.
But you're not going to want to keep some random person's wallet.
No.
Like, you're going to get rid of that. Logistically speaking, I don't think it would make sense that she was the one who did it. She might have been involved. That is still kind of foggy.
Right.
But there was no time between when the first cop saw her, when it happened, for her to get rid of all that stuff.
Yeah.
So,
because they say the death, murder, whatever, happened at 11:38. She saw the cop guys at 11:43. So 5 minutes.
That's 5 minutes to go a couple blocks and throw something away.
Right.
And then hide a gun really, really well. It doesn't make sense.
No.
That doesn't make sense. Now, having someone else do that, that's different. That could logistically happen. Whether or not she was involved, I mean, if they're saying they're going to marriage counseling.
Right. And
like working on it.
And they're here at the beach not to be like
she was
let me
already
go kill
she
him.
was already moved in with John.
Right.
She had already left.
And then she moved back to Brent.
Right. Why would that doesn't make sense.
Right. I know.
The family doesn't help.
No, the family's not great either.
No, that doesn't help. I'm glad she still has a good relationship with her daughter.
Yeah. And then she's doing so much in prison.
Yeah. Sounds like she's doing good,
She is, yeah.
you know, and I don't want to be like, yeah, she definitely didn't do it, but it's.
I know. It's like I can see the reasons for why she did.
Mhm.
And I could see the reasons for, like, the arguments for her doing it and the arguments
Right.
for her not doing it.
Like, there definitely needs to be some explanations put out there for me to be fully convinced she didn't do it,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not off the table.
Yeah.
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 Damn, that's crazy.
Yeah. South Carolina. Who would have thunk?
All these conspiracies.
I know.
Like,
I
we got a
know.
lot of conspiracies going on here.
This is the first time we've covered people in South Carolina, though, I think. I think the other ones were like haunted things. So I think it's good we jumped into some conspiracies.
I don't remember. I don't recall. I ain't got no memory of anything at all.
What's that?
Song?
From what?
I believe Peter Gabriel.
Oh.
Or when it was with Genesis with the Tarzan guy. Oh my God, what's his name?
Phil Collins.
Thank you. They were in Genesis together and then they split up and Dad would play a CD with that song on it. And I don't remember who was who.
Oh.
So,
Well, there you
but
have
I
it.
certainly remember that part of the,
You certainly do. That was very clear.
because every time I say I don't remember, I start
Oh my God.
song.
Well, this is where we say thank you for listening.
Yes.
Follow us on the socials. Pretty much everything is at A Scary State Pod or A Scary State Podcast.
Yes, yes, yes.
Our email is ascarystatepodcast@gmail.com.
It sure is.
Message us on Instagram if you want.
We'd love to hear from you.
We would.
So stay scary.
Stay safe.